Welcome to Kevin and Brian's Horror Drive-In Theater Podcast, where each week we cover the latest horror news, shorts, and 2 creature feature reviews. This week, after the news, we'll cover the old drive-in classic, Mad Ron's Prevues from Hell, followed by our discussion of the short film, The Predator Holiday Special, and our modern horror feature film, The Nun. Stick around here at the drive-in. It's almost fully dark outside. I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
And now on to the news.
What is new?
Well, Guillermo del Toro is producing Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and that should be out next summer sometime.
And that's based on the classic children's book.
One of the most heavily banned books from libraries, being too terrifying for children.
And yet I remember reading it when I was a kid and thinking, boy, these are kind of tame.
You're kind of twisted, though.
I am.
I don't remember seeing these when I was little. I've seen them since, but I don't remember them being around when I was very young.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I had a copy of it. Could I tell you any stories specifically that are out of that, though? No.
I bet you will in summer.
I bet I will in summer. Is the hairy toe one of those in that?
The hairy toe?
You don't know. The hairy toe, yes. I want my toe.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's going to be a good thing to watch next summer.
But anyway, Del Toro does some really fine work, and
yeah.
I'm confident that this will be very entertaining.
Or at least visually interesting.
Yeah, visuals he does knockout work there.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of old books, The Turn of the Screw is going to be updated.
From 1890.
Did you ever read that one?
I did not, no.
I had to read that in college, believe it or not. It's sort of a psychological thriller written by Henry James. And it's this woman goes to an old castle to take care of 2 kids. She's going to be their governess. And she starts seeing strange things.
Is she crazy, or is it ghosts?
And that's exactly the point of the story. It's written in such a way you don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know enough about it in bits and pieces I've heard over the years. And it's been incorporated in different things and made in different things. It was even part of the Dark Shadows series. They did some of the storyline from that incorporated into Dark Shadows. And this is going to be a series. It's not going to be just a one-shot.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it does.
Catch up on your classics the easy way. Watch them on TV. Speaking of classics, the Predator Holiday Special is out. This thing's been promoted and hyped for weeks and weeks for Christmas, and now the Predator Holiday Special has been released. And, of course, there'll be a link in the show notes for you to watch The Reindeer versus the Predator. What'd you think?
I thought it was a hoot.
For the amount of hype that went into it, I was expecting something longer. It's only about 2.5 minutes.
I was expecting longer. I wanted more, because it was really funny. Yeah.
What happens when the Predators get to the, basically the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon, basically.
They're definitely playing off that.
Yeah. Doesn't look identical, but it's close enough. You know what they're doing.
Yeah, the main elf guy and the reindeer. The animation style is similar. The Santa looks similar. But it's too short.
Doesn't end the same way.
No, I don't remember Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer ending that way.
Sometimes I wish it would.
That'd be different.
Yeah, we show those people how it goes. Okay, so check that out. It's free. There's a link in the show notes to watch that one on YouTube. Again, 2.5 minutes of your time. Twilight Zone, New Year's Marathon, coming up this year, probably right around New Year's Eve, you think?
Over the whole New Year's holiday.
Yeah, and this has been going on for years now. They do this. They show a whole bunch of episodes. And not all of them, obviously, but
there's a list available. They are planned out, and what ones they're going to show. It runs from Sunday night until Wednesday at 6:30 in the morning.
That is a lot of them.
Can you imagine sitting there for that whole thing, watching all of it, and then it ends, and like, how could you ever go back to normal life again?
You go outside the front door and say, "Oh, the world's in color."
Huh.
That'd mess you up. Was that 4 straight days?
Challenge accepted.
But if you've never really seen much of the Twilight Zone, might be a good time to start watching. They pick out the best episodes for that.
And there really are some good ones, good stories.
for four straight days, 24 hours. I'm sure there's some stinkers in there too, but they got at least all the good ones.
Uh-huh.
All right, and the final story of the week. Netflix has just renewed The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina for a third and the fourth season. What do you think?
Have you seen the show at all?
I don't. I thought it sounded silly when it first came out, but I'm hearing all kinds of good stuff about it. We should probably watch that.
We probably should, because I keep hearing good things about it. That and Riverdale. I was a big fan of the comics.
I think Riverdale still has a lot of that teen angsty stuff that we roll our eyes at, but it's a lot more adult than I think it sounded like in the beginning. May have to watch a little of that.
A lot more adult than the comics were, I think.
But the Sabrina one, everybody says really is very good.
I got the impression that Riverdale is a lot like, or sort of like the comics Betty Cooper, that was kind of a spin-off, where they were darker, and she was kind of solving mysteries, and there was some magic involved, tied in with Sabrina a little bit. I think the TV series maybe, I don't know, we need to see it.
Yeah.
But that was the impression I got, that it's definitely darker and more adult.
So the reason this headline is interesting is they finished the first season. It's out there on Netflix to watch anytime you want. The second season hasn't even aired yet. They finished the second season. It's coming soon, but it's not there yet. But to renew it for a third and fourth seasons, that shows they've got pretty good faith in it.
They've got confidence.
Hopefully that works out better than House of Cards.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of movies from hell, last season of House of Cards.
The last season of House of Cards.
Yeah, let's not even go there.
It wasn't the same. So
we've got today a strange one. Rather than a standard movie, this one is more of a compilation of old-time movie trailers for various 60s and 70s horror movies. Yeah. Mad Ron's Prevues from Hell. Made in 1987. And this is available on Netflix, so you don't have to run out and buy it. It's there. You can just watch it right now if you want. And its quality is right there, straight ripped from VHS. It looks like it was filmed on a potato. But it's a collection of maybe 20 or so movie trailers that someone collected over the decades and compiled into a movie with a sort of a zombie wrapper around it.
It has a sort of a storyline. The guy's a projectionist, and he's at the theater, and the zombies are coming in, and they have to do something to entertain them. What'll we do? We'll show these clips. That'll keep them quiet. And it does. It keeps them quiet, and the zombies come in more and more.
And the zombies, their makeup's done pretty well.
Yeah, it is. It was all strictly practical effects. 1987, there's no CGI whatsoever.
Sort of a low-budget thing an advanced hobbyist might do. It's definitely not a major, big production.
But very gory, realistic, zombie parts falling out, eyeballs popping out.
Night of the Living Dead kind of stuff, not Walking Dead kind of stuff. Not quite that advanced.
Right.
But it was entertaining enough. The projectionist comes in and out between various segments, and he talks to his ventriloquist buddy. He's a ventriloquist, by the way.
His buddy is named Happy Goldsplat. And
didn't catch that.
Yeah, the ventriloquist is Nick Paulo, and he is a decent ventriloquist. Again, practical effects. It's a zombie-looking puppet, and if you look at his throat, you can see, his throat is clearly working. He's clearly doing it. His lips were, he was a very good ventriloquist, really.
I've never quite understood the point of being a ventriloquist on film. Can't pretty much anyone do that if someone off the camera is given the voices?
They could.
It's called cheating.
Yeah, they could, but
yeah.
He did
He's
not
for
cheat.
real, though.
Yeah, he's the real deal. Yeah.
So anyway, with the exception of a little bit of an introduction and between segment foolishness between the ventriloquist and, what's his name, Happy?
Happy Goldsplat.
Happy Goldsplat, yeah. Between Happy and the ventriloquist, there are many, many movie trailers. Which is, what did you see that was really memorable?
I Drink Your Blood, I Drink Your Skin.
That was the
kind
first
of a
one.
double feature, and that one kind of really stuck with me.
That was the first one of the bunch, and I was starting to think these were made-up trailers because that was so over the top. And then the second one was something I'd really seen, and I realized, no, that was a real movie.
Most of the movies were the style of probably the best known one was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it's typically women are the victims being chased and dismembered and brutalized. A lot of screaming because there's a lot of female victims.
I have never turned down the volume so many times. I bet I turned the volume down 6 or 7 times during this thing just to keep the neighbors
easily. And I was thinking, boy, what do the neighbors think we're doing in here tonight?
It was loud and there was so much screaming. I was getting a headache from the screaming.
So it's the exploitation of exploitation style horror films. Lots of bouncing boobies and screaming women being dismembered and chased after by guys with chainsaws and axes and but a few of them the women were the killers, Cannibal Girls was one of them.
What was it? Ilsa, the Nazi.
Yes.
What was she?
Ilsa, the she-wolf.
The she-wolf of the SS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it wasn't entirely the women being victims. Sometimes the guys were victims too. But it was all that style of movie.
So these are great movies to watch with your feminist girlfriend.
Or somebody who doesn't like blood.
Okay, so how many of these movies do you think you've seen?
Probably about half of them. Yeah. Some I saw when I was very young. My parents were very open on taking me to movies of all kinds when I was a kid. And some of these I was probably younger than 10. And which is probably part of the reason I turned out like I am.
Most of my horror movie experience as a teenager was watching them on TV. And unfortunately, most of these looked like they were R-rated. So if I had seen them on TV, they were cut to death.
And some of the ones they advertised had advertising gimmicks at the time. This movie is so horrifying. You are warned. And they would profile this guy who was screaming in a straitjacket, who was screaming in a straitjacket. And this poor man, he saw the film and he didn't tell himself it's just a movie. And you must remember, tell yourself it's just a movie. It's not real. It's so horrifying. You may lose your mind. Things along those lines in the previews.
Definitely remember the Texas Chainsaw Horror.
Last House
Massacre.
on the Left.
Last House on the Left.
Last House on the Left was one of them. I saw that. Cannibal Girls. Cannibal Girls I saw when it came out. Mm-hmm. Beyond the Door. That was one of them. That was kind of an Exorcist ripoff. And I'm not sure which one came first.
Oh, they said it was like a sequel to Exorcist.
Okay.
In the trailer they even said that. So,
okay.
Yeah, The Exorcist came first.
Okay. I missed that. But anyway, you get the idea of the kind of compilation. And they do 3 or 4 and then do some of the zombie storyline. And the ventriloquist was telling horrible, lame, dirty jokes with his ventriloquist.
So, there's no plot here. There's no storyline worth talking about. It's basically a collection of trailers with some filler involved. And it's pretty well entertaining. Definitely not what you would call great production values, but decent enough for what it is.
It's an award-winning film, too. In 2010, it won the Phil Tucker Spirit Award at the Zed Fest Film Festival in Hollywood, California.
Huh.
Took him a while, but...
Did Phil Tucker have anything to do with the production of the movie?
Maybe. I didn't see his name listed in there anywhere. So, you should go see this award-winning compilation.
It's worth every penny you're going to pay to see it on Netflix.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mad Ron's Prevues from Hell.
And Prevues is spelled Prevues.
Don't know if that's a European thing, but they all kind of sounded American.
Yeah, it's an American film. It filmed in Pennsylvania where the theater was.
Just odd spelling.
This old historic theater that they're trying to restore into its former glory. Still, it's shut down now. But really big, beautiful, old movie theater that they filmed it in.
Okay. So check that one out. And now, between our 2 features, we generally talk about a short film, and we kind of already did this week. Our short film for this week is the Predator Holiday Special, which we've already recommended it. We'll recommend it again and not waste a lot of time here, but don't say we didn't do our short for the week. Predator Holiday Special.
You should see it. You should see it. It's only 2 minutes long, and you should see it.
And it's got a lot more blood than the following movie.
It's stop action animation blood.
Okay, that makes it better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Let your kids watch it too. Okay, and now on to this week's feature presentation of
The Nun.
So next up, we're going to talk about 2018's The Nun for our modern horror feature this week. And this is in the Conjuring series.
This was film number 7 in the Conjuring universe, but it was sort of actually the third movie because it ties in with the character, the nun, who appears in The Conjuring.
But it's also the first movie chronologically because it takes place earlier, 1952, before all the others.
Kind of a prequel. Shows where the nun came from.
It's complicated.
It is kinda.
On the bright side, you can get through the movie without having seen any of the others. It stands alone pretty well by itself.
Set in Romania mostly, where the Hellgate was basically opened, and that's where the nun came from.
The end. Okay,
Actually,
there's more to it than that.
It did feel that way to me. This whole movie felt like it could have been a very quick story. Like, these things happened, and, we could have covered this in 5 minutes.
I felt like it was maybe could have been a very short story, but it had a lot of visuals added.
Filler. It was creepy and atmospheric.
I thought it looked really good.
It did, yeah. The castle is awesome, and the special effects are awesome. But it was kind of like, okay, what random thing can we have happen now? Oh, here's some hands popping out of the wall and grabbing the priest, and he's being chased by this dead woman, and... Okay, now what's the next thing that's going to happen? Okay.
Lots of things happen.
And here's a little bit more of the storyline. Okay, and then some more filler.
Okay, but there is a story involved. We start out before the credits in 1952 Romania in a very, very old monastery where two nuns are walking up to this door in this creepy old hallway, and we don't know why. Actually, we never really find out why.
Not exactly.
Pull out this key and open up this door. Above the door is a little phrase that says, "God ends here." And they go in, and the old nun gets dragged into the dark and presumably killed. And the thing in the room comes out after the young nun, who then goes to her bedroom, puts a noose around her neck, and jumps out the window, hanging herself. Why? Well, we don't know at this point, but it's time for the credits to roll at that stage. We then cut out to the Vatican, where there's a circle of priests who send Father Burke to check out this mystery. Something funny's going on at the monastery.
He's sort of an agent that they call on for special things and miracles and investigations and exorcisms and things like that.
Sounds like they could probably make a series out of this guy's adventures.
Mm-hmm.
He's like the action exorcist. Before we get a chance to get into that, we cut away to London, where Father Burke goes and he picks up a young pre-nun who's not taken her vows yet, who is supposedly familiar with the territory, but she says she's never been there before. What does that mean? Don't know.
We don't know, and it doesn't matter because the Vatican told us to go, so we're gonna.
They know what they're doing.
And then next thing you know, they're in Romania.
We're back in Romania, where they meet the man who found the hanging nun, and turns out he's a Frenchman named Frenchie. But don't call him French. He's French-Canadian, like that matters. But okay, his name is Frenchie, and he tells us that no one in town ever talks about the Abbey. Even the horse won't approach it. Whenever anybody even mentions it, they spit on the ground. Pooh!
Literally.
Pooh! Well, they find the body in the ice house, the storage room, but the body's been moved. And she has a key in her hand. This is the key to that door we saw them opening earlier, but no one knows what the key is for. But they figure it must be important because it's a really ornate-looking key. So they go into the abbey. They talk to the creepy Mother Superior who tells them to spend the night and we'll talk in the morning.
And she's completely very creepy, shrouded in black.
Never see her face.
Kind of a gravelly voice. And she tells them basically that, there's silence overnight, that the sisters have a vow of silence and can't talk to him till the morning. So just spend the night.
So they send Frenchie home because they don't really have room for him in this huge castle. And of course, Frenchie goes home in the dark, in Romania, alone. And when was the last time you heard that working out well?
And why would anybody think that was a good idea?
Let's walk home in the dark in Romania, of all places.
But he does get kind of chased out in the dark by what looks like a sort of a zombie nun.
But he gets away. He doesn't die.
Which we were expecting.
Yeah.
It's got a low body count, actually.
Very low body count.
The people who were dead are already dead.
Yeah, the three main characters, spoiler, the three
Yeah.
main characters, Frenchie, Irene the pre-nun, and Father Burke, they all lived to the end. And there's a bunch of nuns that die along the way, but it becomes clear toward the end that they were all just visions or ghosts, and they were all dead anyway.
They were already dead. And the Mother Superior was only an animated corpse that the demon had possessed, using like a puppet, basically.
So other than the two nuns before the credits, no one really dies in this movie, which is kind of unusual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Father Burke sees the ghost of a boy who he killed in an exorcism many years ago.
He didn't mean to kill him. It just happened as a side effect after he cast that demon out.
I didn't mean to kill him, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, he sees this ghost, follows out into the cemetery, runs around for a while, and falls into a grave with his headstone. The grave fills up, and he's buried alive. Strangely enough, in this city, there's a tradition where all the little graves have little bells that can be rung from inside.
Just in case you're buried alive.
Have you ever seen this in a different movie?
No, I don't think I ever have.
How hard would it be to maintain that with little ropes going down into the dirt?
Pretty hard.
Yeah. But in this case, it comes in useful because he managed to ring the bell, get the attention of Sister Irene, who digs the fastest grave digging I've ever seen.
Yeah, she's this petite woman, barefoot, no gloves. The grave is literally filled like 5 feet deep, and she digs it out in like 5 minutes.
Have
or
you ever
less.
tried to dig a hole with bare feet and a shovel?
I haven't, but I imagine it's not easy, especially if you're a petite young woman. But she does it. she digs it like a steam hauler. But it's just one of the many things that you don't want to think too much about in this movie because they don't make sense. He fell in and the lid closes and boom, the hole is filled in.
Well, that kind of thing happens in horror movies. It's not logical. It's just weird.
But it kind of gave me a feeling of like, okay, what random thing is going to happen now? That doesn't make any sense.
Meanwhile, Frenchie's gets back to town alive, and he's carrying this cross that he stole out of the cemetery that's like 4 feet long. Because what could protect you against a dead thing other than a giant cross? Anyway, he learns that a local 12-year-old has hung herself in the town, and the bartender says the evil from the abbey is leaking out. Ooh. Meanwhile, Father Burke is reading these books that were in that grave with him. Where did these books come from in the grave? We don't quite know, but there were books in that grave that he was buried in. And in that book, they call the creature that is doing all the bad stuff Valak the Defiler.
And he's very bad. Very
bad. He's a bad guy. And he comes through from somewhere, hell presumably, in a portal inside the abbey.
Yes, which Irene learns about by talking to one of the nuns who tells the story of who built the castle was this sorcerer who opened the gate to hell. And the Crusaders, I guess, Inquisition came in just in time and killed him and sealed up the gate using a relic that had some of the blood of Christ in it.
Literally the blood of Christ. They've got a little vial with blood in it. This is not the typical wine kind of thing. But of course, as one of the nuns says, evil found another way to open the gateway.
See, this is 1952, and during the war, World War II, the place was bombed, and that shook things loose, and it opened the gate again.
Okay, so through various running around and screaming and various things happening, Irene meets the nun, and it becomes clear to us that the nun needs that key she has to get out of her room.
This is the nun.
The nun, yes. Anyway, creepy stuff happens for no reason. Lots of creepy stuff happens here. They run around, there's hands out of the walls, there's floors shaking, there's crosses flying through. There's people turning sideways and necks breaking and
gravity
black ghosts
stops working
doing weird stuff. And just all kinds of stuff happens. And in the middle of that, Frenchie returns. They exorcise a dead nun who's laying on the floor, and the dead nun gets up, starts attacking people, and they set it on fire with a cross. Of course, Frenchie pulls out his shotgun and shoots the dead nun, and if it sounds like just a lot's happening, well, a lot's happening. Why? Because it looks cool.
It did look cool.
So the demon can only leave by possessing someone. They can't just leave it in there. They have to seal the gateway. Meanwhile, Irene, the pre-nun, decides she wants to take her vows and become a full nun. And that's nice, but it's never made relevant that that means anything here.
No, just she fulfilled her destiny to become a full nun, full-fledged. So the priest does a little ceremony, and she's officially a full nun.
Okay, so then the nun attacks, apparently kills Frenchie, apparently kills the priest, attacks Irene, and Irene's wearing the blood of Jesus in this little tube around her neck. And the nun attacks, she pushes her underwater and holds her down till she passes out. But before she does that, she puts the blood in her mouth. The nun lifts her out to gloat, I guess. And Irene spits the blood all over the nun, which has rather expectable results. The nun has some special effects as she slurps down the tube into hell.
Kind of like the Wicked Witch of the West. I'm melting, ah, what a world. Except she didn't say that.
A lot like the leprechaun a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, all she did was melt and sink back down, and then the hell gate sealed itself.
Yeah. And then Frenchie and the priest wake up, and everybody, all three of them are fine, more or less.
Just kind of beat up.
Yeah. So they get on the cart, they head back to town, and as they start heading back, the camera fades away, and we see an upside-down cross tattooed or marked on Frenchie's neck. And then as the credits start to roll, we see old training films, with Frenchie being the subject of this training film, and they show how he's possessed.
It's the couple from The Conjuring, the demonologists.
Yeah, which ties this in loosely with the Conjuring movies.
And it ends at the very end with the implication there's a girl screaming, Frenchie has grabbed a woman, and I think the implication there is that woman becomes the nun.
Well, maybe.
Who appears in the Conjuring movies.
So did you have to see the Conjuring movies to understand what was going on here?
I think it helped knowing this stuff. I think you would have gotten less if you'd known absolutely nothing about what was going on with the other movies.
There's about 1 minute of scene in the beginning of the movie and another minute right at the very end that sort of tie in with the Conjuring movies. But I think for the most part, this is more of an origin story for the nun. If you kind of ignore the first and last minutes, I don't think it's all that crucial.
But I think the first and last minutes would confuse you if you knew absolutely nothing about the other movies.
Yeah, they never actually come out and say that this is a part of that universe.
And it shows where the nun came from.
No, what do you think overall? What would your out of 10 be?
4.
I'd go with a 6. I thought it looked really good. It definitely had the creeps. It had the scenery. The set design was good. Everything looked really good with this.
Mm-hmm.
The story kind of was very blah, very generic, very bland.
And not much of a story.
Not much of it.
A lot of filler.
3 people go to a creepy
filler.
monastery, run into a nun, close the hellmouth, and leave with one possessed.
Yeah.
There's the story. There's the entire plot.
That's how the nun gets out past the... Oh, there was a barrier of crosses around the abbey holding the evil in.
Yeah.
But I guess because it had possessed Frenchie, or got into Frenchie, that it was able to cross the barrier.
So you're saying a 4, I'm saying a 6, and IMDb says 5.5. That's about halfway.
26% Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it didn't fare so well there.
That's not so great.
But The Conjuring is a very popular series, and maybe this is just weak compared to some of the other stories.
And I think it still made enough money where they're going to keep making more. It did well enough. It made its money back, and then some.
Well, they have a cast of 3 real actors and filmed in Romania. A lot of good special effects. Not so much special effects as the scenery. Like I said, the set design was really good. The actors couldn't have been too expensive. There weren't that many of them. Romania is a really cheap place to film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I bet it didn't cost very much.
Yeah, I was looking at one interesting stat that I found out that scenes were filmed in the Palace of the Parliament building for a fee of 5,000 euros per hour.
I'll bet that was the Vatican scenes.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Because that monastery didn't look like any kind of palace.
No. But that's the thing about these movies. They keep making money, and so then they are encouraged to make more. So I bet we haven't heard the end of The Conjuring.
Or The Nun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Annabelle is another movie that ties in with it.
The Doll, yeah.
There's a couple Annabelle movies, I think.
A couple of spin-offs. Generally with 7 movies, they're not all The Conjuring. They have a couple of little spin-offs in there. And we'll probably cover some of those before too awful long. Okay, so thumbs up from me?
Yeah, overall thumbs up.
Overall thumbs up, but don't go into it looking for a deep story.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was The Nun from 2018.
And it looks like the sun is starting to come up and they're closing the drive-in, so we're going to have to get going. Drive-in is closing down for the weekend. Stop in during the week at www.horrorbulletin.com for news and horror updates, to comment on this podcast, or to contact us. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Brian.
And please pick up your snacks before you leave the drive-in. Drive back in next week.
See ya.
See ya.